If you're still not seeing any results with your anterior pelvic tilt, especially after watching these kind of videos, then you need to start your plan by releasing this one muscle first. And no, I'm not talking about the psoas. Since you most likely already know what an anterior pelvic tilt is, here's a quick 10-second recap. An anterior pelvic tilt is when the pelvis is tilted forward thanks to the psoas pulling it down, which in turn lengthens the core and the glutes, resulting in them becoming weakened and not strong enough to pull the pelvis back to neutral. But there was an interesting study a few years ago that not only showed a hidden muscle locking up the psoas, it also showed another therapy that isn't featured in any of these other videos. Now let me be clear, I'm not saying any of these videos are wrong. In fact, we're going to be taking the most popular video and modifying it with this brand new information to make it even better. Plus, a small YouTuber like myself can use the help and search. Let's be real. So if you want to know what the hidden muscle is, which therapy you should start with, and you want to get Athlean X's upgraded plan created by me, then make sure to stick around until the end. Welcome to Training Massage. My name's Adam. And on this channel, you're going to learn the best techniques for releasing tight muscles, improving your posture, and even relieving your pain. So if that sounds like something you want to do, then make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, and let's get into it. So real quick, we have to have an idea of what Jeff's plan was for anterior pelvic tilt. And to be fair, he doesn't give a very specific plan in this video, but at the very end, he does list out some things to do. So we're going to be using that as our step-by-step process here. The first step in his plan is to strengthen the glutes. He then goes into stretching the lower back, stretching the hip flexors, and then training the core without engaging the hip flexors. Now, based on this specific order, the very first thing I'm going to be changing here is not starting off with strengthening the glutes. And the reason why is because Jeff says it himself that an anterior pelvic tilt is going to be mostly from the psoas pulling down on the pelvis.
Most of all, it is a dominance and a shortening of the hip flexor here on the front side of Jesse.
So we want to start off by releasing the shortened muscles like the psoas. But instead of starting on your psoas, we're going to be starting on the quadratus lumborum, also known as the QL, which is the hidden muscle found in our recent study. This study took 30 individuals through a modified Thomas test and found improvements on the test after releasing not the psoas, but the QL, which is located in your lower back. Now, let me be clear, these people didn't have anterior pelvic tilt or really any issues to begin with, and the study did have a few flaws, just like every other study out there. But what it did show us was not only a connection between the lower back muscles and the hip flexors, but it also showed us a better treatment to start with, which is self-massage. Now, why am I saying self-massage first? As a sports massage therapist, I'm obviously biased, right? But because in the study, they released that QL with not only what they believe to be trigger points, but also a fascia release for the deep front line. And both of those are best done with massage techniques. Now, if you're confused by what the deep front fascia line is, think of it as a fascia system that connects different muscles deep in the body together. And when you release one side of the fascia or one area, it will release the rest of the muscles or most of them in that fascia line. And you can quickly see this in real time by releasing the foot in order to lengthen the hamstrings. And even though this is not the deep front line, this is the superficial back line. Step one, test your hamstring flexibility real quick in a single leg. Just try to see where you begin to feel tight. Now from here, take a small ball or a foam roll, wherever you have basically, and place it under your foot as you massage the bottom of your foot for 30 seconds up to a minute. Make it a minute so I'm right. Now retest your hamstring flexibility and compare it to the other side. Now if you did this, you most likely felt a little looser and maybe even more flexible within the hamstrings without ever touching the hamstrings. This is a quick example of a fascia line in play by releasing one side and unlocking the rest of it. This is basically what's happening to the QL and the psoas within the deep front line. So step one for this modified plan is to not strengthen the glutes, but to self-massage the quadratus lumborum first, and then the psoas, because let's be real, that bitch is probably tight too. To release the QL, grab a small ball and lean up against the wall with the ball pinned into your lower back and to the side. Now, to get to the QL, it's best to go into the wall at a 45-degree angle, get some pressure, and then rotate your back into the wall in order to target the QL a little more. If you don't do this rotation, I find we end up a little more on the erector muscles, which is right on the outside, the superficial parts, but we want to get a little deeper, which is why I come at it at an angle and then I rotate into it to get a little more pressure. And to self-massage your iliopsoas combo, all you want to do is start by laying on your back with your feet planted and your knees bent. From here, grab a small ball and place it a thumb size down from the belly button and to the side to find a starting point. This is roughly 1 to 2 inches down and to the side if you don't like the little thumb measurements. Now from here, slowly apply some pressure into the muscle, maybe go in a little bit at an angle toward the spine in order to hit that psoas. You can also confirm this by lifting that same leg, and if you feel that muscle pop up, it's most likely the psoas. Now, once you have found your trigger point, you can perform some static pressure and just hold that for 30 seconds up to 2 minutes. You can use compression techniques by applying some pressure for a few seconds, releasing it, and then repeating for 10 to 15 reps. Or you can perform a pin and stretch. And to do this specifically for the QL, you're going to pin the muscle as you're leaning to that same side. From there, you're then going to pull it or lean the opposite direction in order to stretch out that QL. Release the tension, go back to that starting position and repeat. And for the psoas, all you have to do is press down into that muscle and then slowly slide that same leg all the way down into the hamstrings touching the floor. From there, release the tension and repeat. You can perform a pin and stretch for 30 seconds up to 2 minutes or for 7 to 15 reps. With this major upgrade out of the way, let's move into the next portion, which is going to be stretching the hip flexors and the lower back, aka our QLs. Now, why do we want to stretch after releasing the trigger point? Because there was another study that showed trigger point plus stretching for rounded shoulders got better results than stretching alone. And in fact, the results stuck around for 2 weeks after just 1 session. Now, even though the study was for rounded shoulders, we can still take this same idea and the same principle and apply it to the shortened muscles for anterior pelvic tilt. So that's why we self-massage first, and now we're going to stretch them out. To stretch the QL, you can either perform an overhead side lunge with an emphasis on flexing at your obliques. Just make sure you aren't collapsing in too much, even though a little bit is okay because it will also help stretch out the QL. Now, another version you can do is Athlean X's version to stretch the QLs. He doesn't show it in this specific video, but I have seen it in one of his other videos. Basically, what you're doing is starting on all fours, and then all you have to simply do is drop one hip to the ground while leaving your arms stretched out and holding your body up. What this is going to do is drop that hip to the ground, which will then stretch out that same side QL closest to the floor. If you want a little more leverage, you can put your hands on a yoga block or maybe even a bench. And to stretch your hip flexors, you can do whatever stretch you want. Just one quick tip. Make sure you are squeezing the glutes in order to get a little bit of a tighter stretch in the hip flexors. And make sure your core is remaining tight so you're not putting that stretch on the core and it's staying on the front hips. So core tight, squeeze the glutes in order to make your hip flexor stretch just a little better. Whatever stretch you want to do, make sure to hold it for a minimum of 1 minute up to 2 minutes. This brings us to the final stage in his anterior pelvic tilt plan, which is to strengthen the glutes and the core, just like he said in his video. But the reason why we want to do this last is because now that the muscles are relaxed and elongated, the muscles that were stretched out, the weaker ones like the glutes and the core, will have an easier chance contracting, making it an easier opportunity, I guess, for you to train. A little tongue twister there. The first muscle you're going to be training is the glutes. And again, you can do whatever exercise you want to fire them up. But for this video, I'm going to be showing you a small combo that will both target the glute medius and the glute max. What you want to do is start by laying on your side with your knees bent and your feet stacked. Also, make sure to have a mini band wrapped around the top of your knees. Now, from here, get a straight line with the front of your body by pulling your legs back, your hips into extension. And then from here, you're simply going to lift the top of the leg up, hold for a few seconds, and then let it return. Now, one quick tip here, make sure you are pulling the leg up by squeezing the glutes as opposed to just lifting the leg up with the rest of your muscles in the leg. Remember, we're trying to do an isolated exercise here. We're trying to target the glutes. So start the movement by firing at those glutes and then let the rest of the legs, let the rest of the muscles follow in the legs in order to get that band all the way up. Now from here, we can move straight into the next exercise, which is hip abduction with extension. All you want to do is bring that bottom leg up to the front to create tension in the band. Keep the top leg straight with the leg extended. Now from here, all you're going to do is raise that leg up towards the ceiling, hold for a few seconds, then bring it all the way back down towards the floor, and then repeat for your desired reps. Once again, use the glutes to try to pull that leg up and try to keep it as far back as you can to keep those muscles fired up. If the band is pulling your leg forward, then you need to engage the glutes to keep it at least straight with the body. Make sure to perform both these exercises for 1 to 3 sets and 12 to 20 reps. Now the final part in our plan is to train the core. And to do this, I'm going to be giving you 2 different exercises. One that doesn't engage the hip flexors and one that kind of does. First one we're going to be doing is a plank. And because I feel like you already know how to do this, I'm just going to give you a quick pointer to try to engage the core a little more. While you're on your elbows and your toes, what you want to do is try to pull your elbows closer towards the midline, towards your stomach, and try to get your toes to point up towards your knees. And what this is going to do is basically contract every single muscle in the front of the body, which will then help engage that core even more. Now, the other exercise you can do for the core is called a hollow crunch. And I actually got this one from another YouTube video by Calisthenic Movements. I'll make sure to leave that in the description below. Start by laying on your back with your arms and your knees in the air. Now, from here, you're going to crunch both your upper and your lower body to the ceiling, hold for a few seconds, and then let it slowly return. What makes this exercise so great is that not only are you engaging the lower abs to bring the butt up a little bit, but you're also engaging the upper abs to bring the upper body up a little bit. And yes, you are engaging your hip flexors in this exercise, but the idea here is you're not bringing the knees into the stomach. It's more about bringing the knees up towards the ceiling, which will prevent the hip flexors from contracting and it will only keep them engaged. Your core is contracting, create a concentric contraction, and your hip flexors are going to be engaged with an isometric contraction. That right there is going to be your difference. And once again, perform each exercise for 3 sets and 12 to 20 reps, or hold that plank for 30 to 60 seconds. And that's your plan for anterior pelvic tilt. Now make sure to go watch this next video about knock knees because chances are some of you got that as well.